Hello, welcome to Inside the Summit League. Got the new men's basketball head coach at Oral Roberts. Coming up in a little bit, got a story as well on the women's hammer throw team at North Dakota State. They're the #1 ranked team in the country right now. Those stories coming up. But first, wow, there was some great golf in the final round of the Summit League Men's Championship on Tuesday down in Kansas. 17 of the 45 players in the field under par in the final round, including South Dakota State's Grant Smith with a 2 under par 70. That includes a birdie 2 on the 17th hole, and with that, Smith wins the individual championship this year, wins it by 1 shot over Cody Seal of South Dakota. Seal shoots 31 on the back 9. He made 5 birdies on the back on his way to a 69 in the final round. And then Cody Burrows of Oral Roberts with 7 birdies as he closes with a 69 to finish in 3rd place. And then Restrepo from the Jacks, Spence from the Jags, and Schroeder from Fort Wayne, all with final round 70s to finish in a tie for 4th. And the round of the championship, Western Illinois freshman Drew Eaton, 7 birdies in his final round, a 6 under par 66 for Eaton. That is tied for the 4th best round ever at the Summit League Men's Tournament. South Dakota State won the team title by 11 shots last year, and they win it by 2 this year. In fact, there were 6 teams within 11 shots of the lead at the end of this. Led by Grant Smith, South Dakota State was 4 under as a team in the final round to edge out Oral Roberts. South Dakota moves up a spot on the final day to finish 3rd, and IUPUI moves up 2 spots on the final day to come in 4th, and the Jaguars had the best final round, a collective 7 under par on Tuesday, with all 4 of the IUPUI players at par or better in that final round. Well, while that was going on in Kansas, the Summit League Tennis Championships were playing out in Indianapolis. And in the men's final, 3-time defending champion Denver taking on Omaha, the Mavericks in the final for the first time. But Denver doesn't mess around. They never do. They beat Omaha in this one 4-1. The Pioneers stay unbeaten against Summit League opponents, 28-0 overall all time in the regular season and in the tournament since they joined the Summit League 4 years ago. Denver wins the tournament title for the 4th year in a row.
We've had some ups and downs this season, and I knew that we were capable of doing this, but until you do it, you're never really quite sure. So, to be honest with you, I didn't really sleep last night thinking about this match. So I'm pretty happy for the guys, for this group of seniors to do it 4 times in a row. That's a great accomplishment. So I'm very, very happy for them.
All right, in the women's tennis championship, 3-time defending champion Denver taking on South Dakota, and the Coyotes making their first final appearance. But this one ends with more Denver domination. They win it 4-0, and the Pioneers continue an amazing season. They have not lost a set all year, and they win their 4th straight Summit League tournament title.
The biggest thing, throughout the year, there are so many ups and downs. It's a roller coaster, and trying to get at the end of the season everybody ready to go, physically, mentally, emotionally, and that's always not easy to do. But over the last couple of years, we've been able to do that, and I think that's been huge for us. And they always seem to be sharper for the conference tournament.
Well, so far in the Summit League sports season, Denver has won men's and women's tennis. They won men's soccer, volleyball, men's and women's swimming and diving, and women's golf a couple of weeks ago. That is 7 of the 15 championships so far won by the Denver Pioneers. Well, up next, meet the former Baylor assistant men's basketball coach, who is now the new men's basketball head coach at Oral Roberts University.
Inside the Summit League on Midco Sports Network is presented by Sanford Orthopedics and Sports Medicine, Dakota Land Honda, South Dakota Corn, and Grand Falls Casino and Golf Resort.
Welcome back. For the first time in 18 years, Oral Roberts has a new men's basketball head coach. Paul Mills was introduced this week as the man to take over after the release of Scott Sutton. Mills has been at Baylor for the last 14 years, the last 8 years as an assistant coach under Scott Drew. Mills gets a 5-year contract, and so begins a new era at Oral Roberts University.
So far, I haven't seen anything to disagree with. He seems like a guy that obviously knows what he's doing. He coached one of my best friends back at Baylor, TJ Maston, and TJ's told me all good things, and so I'm excited to see what we can do.
Well, to play fast, I'm fine with playing fast. I play well that way. So I think it's a team that'll be good for us, especially in Summit League, to push the ball some more and up the pace in our game. I think it'll definitely be positive for us moving forward going into next season.
Well, Oral Roberts is one of the Summit League teams that has seen some player movement in the last few weeks or so. ORU has a graduate transfer coming in from Missouri State. His name is Austin Reuter. He'll be able to play right away. He was on the Missouri Valley All-Freshman team back in 2014, and he played in 29 games last year at Missouri State. Of course, there have been some guys leaving the Summit League as well. Chris Martin left Oral Roberts. He transfers to Colorado State, and he'll have to sit out of here. Can play in the 2018-19 season. Trayshawn Thurman left Omaha, and he is transferred to Nevada to play for former NBA coach Eric Musselman. Thurman will have to sit out a year and then play his senior year in the 2018-19 season at the University of Nevada. Up next, track and field, especially the field part, throwing some weight around with some of the best women's hammer throwers in the country at North Dakota State. Welcome back. North Dakota State and South Dakota are headed for some serious showdowns in a couple of weeks at the Summit League Outdoor Track and Field Championships. The Bison and the Coyotes have kind of dominated the Athlete of the Week awards for the last few months. They've got them again this week. Alex Renner at North Dakota State, a senior from Watertown, South Dakota. He won the collegiate shot put at the Drake Relays at 62 feet, 2 1/4 inches. And he finished second in the weight throw at Drake with a distance of 200 feet, 10 inches. Chris Nilsson at South Dakota, freshman from Kansas City, does it again. Top collegiate finisher in the pole vault at the Drake Relays. He cleared 18 feet, 4 1/2 inches there. Nilsson also placed first at the USD Twilight meet at 18 feet and a 1/2 inch. And Danielle Waldner at South Dakota, senior from Redfield, South Dakota. She is 18th in the nation right now, leads the Summit League after she won the shot put at the USD Twilight, 55 feet, 3/4 of an inch there. And she also won the collegiate shot put at the Drake Relays, 52 feet, 7 1/4 there for Danielle Waldner. Well, one event unique to outdoor track and field is the hammer throw. And according to the latest national coaches rankings, the best women's hammer throw team in the country right now is North Dakota State. Brian Shawn has more on this fabulous foursome in Fargo.
The track and field record books at North Dakota State have been completely rewritten in the last 5 years, due largely in part to the throwing program. But this year, one fearsome foursome in particular really knows how to drop the hammer on its competition by throwing a hammer longer than any other group in the country. The NDSU women's hammer throwers have 4 athletes that average a best mark of nearly 199 feet, tops in the NCAA. But this group isn't all that stunned.
It doesn't surprise me because our coach is Justin St. Clair, and I mean, he's one of the best there is, so it makes sense why we're as good as we are.
Here, not here, not back behind.
I think coach is a very good coach, very knowledgeable, definitely knows what he's doing, and I think he does a very good job of using his resources and coaching us well here.
We strive to be number one. It's not an expectation, but I mean, it's what we strive for here at NDSU. And every week, Justin would come to us, be like, hey, like, we're number 2 right now. Like, what are you going to do about that this weekend?
This collection of throwers features a senior, a junior, a sophomore, and a freshman. With so much quality and depth, every day at practice pushes everyone to make progress and help each other grow.
Everyone's improved this year, and it's just, everyone motivates each other. Everyone wants to, like, be friendly but beat each other, and it's good. Like, we push each other to be the best that we can be.
It's really a great opportunity because every day you're practicing with your competition. And it's really great to see those people that you practice with and have a good relationship with do well. And I think that's one special part about our team is we're very supportive of each other.
NDSU travels to meets all over, going up against some of the best teams and athletes in the country. But when the Bison take the field, there is no fear.
We are not afraid at all going into these meets and seeing UCLA or Texas and Stanford, and so it's super cool, and they know who we are as well, so that gives us a lot of pride and enjoyment of who we are.
We're pretty well known in the throwing community in college, so it's just awesome that we've been able to get there in such a short amount of time.
And not only are the Bison throwers turning heads in the hammer throw, they also rank 2nd in the discus and 3rd in both the javelin and shot put.
It's just been amazing that I've been a part of this, and I feel like I'm on the upper end of it, and I know that there's many, many years to come with great, exceptional throwers. So it's really great to be part of that.
Training is much more intense and more frequent. So trying to get settled into everything all at once was hard, but it was worth it.
My confidence and my goals have been higher since I've gotten to college. And I'm shocked at where I am, but it's a good thing and I'm still driven.
That's kind of like our little motto, is get 1% better every day. So by the time it comes to actually compete and times to put the results up, that you're ready to go at 100%.
Reporting for Inside the Summit League, I'm Brian Shawn.
Up next, more magnificence. He is the Summit League strikeout king right now. The numbers on an almost perfect performance by North Dakota State's Luke Lind. Now to baseball, and the Summit League picks up a couple of Power 5 wins this week. Oral Roberts beat Oklahoma State 4-1 Tuesday night. 6 ORU pitchers allowed just 2 hits in that game, and Noah Cummings with 2 RBI. And Western Illinois beat Iowa on Tuesday night 7-5. Jonathan Fleek with 3 RBI for the Leathernecks in that win. Meanwhile, there is a big Summit League series in Fargo this weekend. North Dakota State hosting Oral Roberts. North Dakota State has the pitcher of the week going into that series. Luke Lind leads the league in strikeouts. He is coming off a 3-0 complete game win over South Dakota State last Friday. Lind with a career-high 11 strikeouts in that game. He struck out 7 of the first 9 guys he faced. Lind allows just 1 hit. It's the first Bison 1-hitter in the last 15 years. And Luke Lind will likely be the starter on Friday against Oral Roberts when they start that series. The Golden Eagles are 19-2 in Summit League play. Matt Watley is the player of the week. Watley with 7 hits and 8 RBI in a 3-game sweep against Fort Wayne. Watley is second in the league right now in RBI behind teammate Noah Cummings, and this is just crazy. Oral Roberts has 9 of the top 12 in runs batted in right now in Summit League games. Their whole lineup is in the top 12 in RBI. Meanwhile, the regular season title in softball is going to come down to the last regular season games coming up this weekend. North Dakota State and Western Illinois and IUPUI are all tied at the top right now. Well, North Dakota State will close out the regular season this weekend at Omaha, and the Bison go into that series with the players of the week. Zoe Stavro was 9 for 17 in games against Minnesota and South Dakota State. And North Dakota State pitcher Jacqueline Surdick with 2 wins against South Dakota State. She went 14 innings, 19 strikeouts, and Surdick leads the league right now in wins and in strikeouts. She has thrown 71 more innings than anybody else this year, but also has 85 more strikeouts than anybody else in the Summit League. Well, when we come back, the incredible story of a former baseball player at South Dakota State, now a baseball announcer for the Colorado Rockies, who survived one of the most famous airplane crashes in American history.
Inside the Summit League on Midco Sports Network is presented by Sanford Orthopedics and Sports Medicine, Dakota Land Honda, South Dakota Corn, and Grand Falls Casino and Golf Resort.
Welcome back. Jerry Schemmel played baseball at South Dakota State back in the 1980s, and you may recognize his name not because he was an all-time great baseball player, but because he is now a radio guy in Major League Baseball, and he lived through a famous plane crash back in 1989. Survival led to revival in his life and his career. Here's David Brown with the story.
Baseball has always been a sport keen to the senses. The smell of fresh-cut grass, the sight of sunshine illuminating a bright blue sky, and that gratifying crack of the bat. For the Colorado Rockies, the backdrop at Coors Field in Denver is perfect. About the only thing wrong this afternoon is the outcome for the home team, an 11-3 loss to the Tampa Bay Rays.
Well, Geyer's on the run. He's going to catch up to this shy of the track.
But if there's any sense that Jerry Schemmel isn't enjoying his job behind home plate, it doesn't come across in the one sense he's known for, his voice.
Swing and a miss on a slider. There's a good-looking pitch by Gonzalez-Germain.
I'm doing Major League Baseball. I get to come to the ballpark every single day. To me, that's fun, whether we lose or win.
For all of the sounds of the diamond, Jerry's perspective is a sight that gives him the best view of the game. Growing up in Madison, South Dakota, Jerry was constantly involved in athletics year-round, but he gravitated toward the ballpark.
I love to play baseball, and decided that was what I was going to focus on, and walked on at South Dakota State.
After 2 years at SDSU, Jerry transferred to Washburn University in Topeka, Kansas. Knowing his college career wouldn't translate to the pros, Jerry wanted to stay involved in athletics in any way possible, and decided broadcasting was the route to take.
It was doing high school football and basketball games in Topeka, Kansas, at a little country station there. I honestly made $10 a game. That was back in the early 80s, and I loved it. I thought that was a lot of money, but I enjoyed every moment of that too.
Jerry's big break came when the Topeka Sizzlers came to town. As part of the old Continental Basketball Association, Jerry called Sizzlers games for 4 years and made plenty of friends in the CBA along the way. That included Commissioner Jay Ramsdell, who wanted Jerry to help him promote the league full-time as deputy commissioner.
At the time, I wasn't really sure I wanted to give up the broadcasting, but I thought, let's just give this thing a shot. It's a great opportunity. I was very close with Jay. A new beginning for me. I was going to move to Denver and start this new career, so I gave it a shot.
July 19th, 1989. After being bumped on 4 straight flights, Jerry and Jay finally boarded United Airlines Flight 232 from Denver to Chicago. They were hoping to eventually make it to Columbus, Ohio for league business. Because of the full flight, Jerry and Jay sat in separate rows. A little more than 1 hour into the flight, Jerry heard something he didn't expect.
The first thing I thought, to give you an idea of what this first sounded like, then felt like, I thought a bomb had gone off.
One of the DC-10's 3 engines had failed. The plane's autopilot was disengaged, and its brakes were rendered useless. Captain Alfred Haynes was calm but realistic over the PA system.
At one point he said, I'm not going to kid anybody, this is going to be rough. Another time he said, you need to be ready for this crash because we are not going to land safely.
Thanks to Captain Haynes and the crew, the flight was able to circle for 45 minutes while getting all 296 people on board ready for impact.
Okay, so we have almost no controllability. Very little elevator and almost no aileron. We're controlling the turns by power.
The plane finally hit the ground in Sioux City, Iowa, at more than 250 miles per hour.
Immediately inside the plane, complete chaos. To be honest, there were bodies being thrown about as soon as we hit. Some were still strapped in their chairs. The chairs had given, and they were thrown in their chairs. And we started breaking into pieces, and fire and smoke was everywhere. And then it wasn't till we came to a halt, and I'm still hanging upside down and backwards. We stopped very suddenly because we hit the cornfield and that loose dirt, and realizing I'm hanging upside down, I'm still alive.
Jerry exited the plane into a cornfield where his section had broken off. But then he heard a baby crying and didn't think twice.
Next thing I remember, I'm back inside the wreckage on all fours over top the crying. And it turned out there was a baby buried in debris in an overhead bin, and it just grabbed her and shot out the plane the second time.
Jerry had saved infant Sabrina Michelson, who was reunited with her family shortly thereafter. But his friend Jay Ramsdell didn't make it.
I was in row 23 and Jay was in row 30, I believe, and that's about where the tail section broke off from us, and where Jay was in it, he got trapped and caught fire.
Jerry was one of 184 survivors, with little more than back pain as a result. 112 others died in the crash. After getting back to Denver and initially thinking he was lucky, the condition known as survivor's guilt washed over him.
I never saw that coming. I wanted to feel the opposite, and this guilt about not only surviving but not being seriously hurt hit me like I tell you, a ton of bricks, to be honest with you.
For the next year, Jerry battled anger and depression that affected both his personal and professional life. He quit his job at the CBA and started looking for guidance.
What's in store for me now? What am I supposed to do now that I survived this crash? And it really, for me, came back to first love, and that was broadcasting.
Jerry got a job doing play-by-play for the Minnesota Timberwolves in 1990, and then transitioned back to Colorado as the voice of the Denver Nuggets until 2010, when he took his current job in baseball. All along the way, he's been open about his experience as a motivational speaker, shaping his discussion around his survival and his faith.
I never had any kind of spiritual foundation at all, and I found Christ about a year after the crash, and that is the number one reason I think when I look at the crash and say something positive has come out of it, it's my relationship with Jesus these days is that reason, that number one reason.
That faith has been tested on numerous occasions since the crash, not the least of which came in 2008, when he learned the infant he had saved all those years ago, Sabrina Michelson, had passed away.
That hit me pretty hard, and it still does. It takes me back to the plane a lot when I think about her. She's buried in Mesa, Arizona. Spring training, I go out and visit her grave, and that brings a lot of the story back as well.
As each July 19th comes and goes, the passage of time puts Jerry further away from the crash. But the fact he's now lived nearly half his life since that fateful day makes it hard for him to imagine life without it. For better or worse, it's given him a foundation for how to live, to not take the wins and losses so seriously, to be a loving husband and father to his 2 children, and to help others across the country know just one thing: don't sit idly while life passes by.
I'm loving life. I'm enjoying life in a big, big way. But there's something more that's out there for me, that the Lord has for me. I'm going to try to do that best of my abilities.
Well, we did check this out. Schemmel had 1 at bat at South Dakota State. He got a hit, career average 1,000 for Jerry Schemmel. And our thanks to him for that story, and thanks to David Brown. Thanks to our Summer League shooters. We'll see you next week.